mira como espejo. Se acercó poco a poco y yo queriendo que me baile. Luego me dijo, vamos que te enseño buenos aires. Y nos fuimos en una, empezamos a la 1. Y con la nota rápido nos dieron las 3. Perreamos toda la noche y nos dormimos a las 10. Ando rezando la Dios para repetirlo otra vez. Y nos fuimos en una, empezamos a la 1. Y con la nota rápido nos dieron las 3. Perreamos toda la noche y nos dormimos a las 10. Ando rezando la Dios para repetirlo otra vez. Dime, beba, fecha y ahorita paso a buscar. Yo le llego donde los demás, tú sabes que no le llegan. Frío de botellas de champán, de la copa al brindar, pero solo escucho como late. Mi corazón cuando ve ese cuerpo escaparate. El traje combina con la Mercedes Granate. No hay otra forma que ellos traten. Quédate, que la noche sin ti duele. Tengo en la mente la pose y todo lo gemido. Que ya no quiero nada que no sea contigo. Quédate, que la noche sin ti duele. Tengo en la mente la pose y todo lo que hicimos. Que ya no quiero nada que no sea contigo. Dale guacha, suelta. Vente pa' Canarias sin el equipaje, sin viaje de vuelta. Por la isla te va a dar una vuelta. Bebé, solo avisa. El sábado te teo, el domingo misa. Estoy a ver si me garantiza que te me pegas como quien graba con B-Side. Salir a las amigas del party y ella se quedó mirándonos a los ojos, no al reloj. Y nos fuimos en Uber al apartamento en privado. Me pedía que le diera un concierto. Le dije que por menos de un beso no canto. Y nos fuimos en una, empezamos a la 1. Y con la nota rápido nos dieron las 3. Perreamos toda la noche y nos dormimos a las 10. Ando rezando la Dios para repetirlo otra vez. Quédate, que la noche sin ti duele. Tengo en la mente la pose y todo lo gemido. Que ya no quiero nada que no sea contigo. Quédate, que la noche sin ti duele. Tengo en la mente la pose y todo lo que hicimos. Que ya no quiero nada que no sea contigo. Que onda con el visa, yeah, yeah. LFS, you
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, as always, the one, the only, the motherfucking General, Miguel Magallon. And as always, President, Founder, CEO of Magallon Entertainment. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to the motherfucking podcast this evening. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to talk about the next epic rally in the stock market, in the economy, and potentially in motherfucking Bitcoin. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about what's going to happen next in the economy, how we're going to play it in the economy, and what I expect to happen with interest rates, not just for 2023, but also for 2024, also 2025. I'm not just going to tell you about the next rally tonight. I'm going to tell you about the next 2 rallies tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, when I'm about to teach you some shit, when I'm about to educate you on some shit, and when I'm about to drop some knowledge in this bitch, you already know what to do on the podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, get the pen and the pads, get the pen and the pads, get the pens and the motherfucking pads, and let us begin. So, as promised, tonight, I will tell you what I think is going to happen this summer in the stock market. I'm going to tell you about this next rally in the stock market. Then I'm going to tell you about the rally after that. And then I'm going to tell you about the rally after that. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to cover not just one, but 2 and potentially 3 more rallies that are about to happen in the stock market. So make sure to pay attention, make sure you got your pen and your pads, and make sure you're taking notes up in this motherfucker. Otherwise, let us begin. So, first things first, summer rally. I talked about it last night, and I think we went extensively into it last night. By the way, shout out to everyone who messaged me this morning telling me that last night's podcast was one of the greatest clips they've ever heard, ever. I try my best to make sure that every single clip I record on this podcast is straight heat, straight fire, just fucking, I feel like I've been dropping bombs all week for honestly the past, several months now. But every now and then, people give me a heads up like, yo, General, that clip you sent out last week or that clip you sent out last night, that was extra fucking heat right there. So thank you, and shout out to everyone who really appreciated last night's clip that I sent out last night. That was The Party Is Almost Over. I didn't expect for it to be that legendary, but now that I got a chance to listen to it again, and a lot of people emailed me this morning, I think the Party Is Almost Over clip might be one of my top 10, maybe at least top 15 clips I've ever made in the history of Magallon Entertainment. So if you guys haven't had a chance to listen to that, go ahead and listen to it. Sent it out last night. It's called The Party Is Almost Over. That's probably top 10, maybe top 15 clips that I've ever recorded on this podcast. And, I didn't really expect it to be that way, but sometimes I just spit fire. It is what it is. And last night's clip, I promise you, if you go ahead and listen to that, if you haven't done so already, I know people that have already listened to it 2 or 3 times because they liked it that much. So again, if you haven't had a chance to do so, I strongly, highly encourage you to listen to last night's clip, The Party Is Almost Over, because that's some fucking nuclear heat for you. I think I'm gonna put it. I'm gonna give it the status of legendary because it's probably is top 10, maybe at least top 15 clips all time. So go ahead and listen to that if you haven't done so already. Otherwise, let's get back into this. So going back to this summer, I want to talk about what I expect to happen this summer, but I also want to talk about what I expect to happen in the fall, what I expect to happen at the end of 2023. I want to talk about, this is probably going to be my first initial predictions for the first half of 2024. I know a lot of you guys are asking me a lot of questions about, the presidential cycle and, who I think is going to win the election. Is it Biden? Is it Biden? Is it Trump? Is it DeSantis? Is it Abbott? Is it fucking Newsom's bitch ass out there in California? I can't believe he got reelected as governor. You got to be fucking kidding me, Newsom. Is it going to be Kamala Harris? Is it going to be that guy, that girl, this pendejo, the other pinche sangano? Is it going to be Elizabeth Warren? Is it going to be AOC? Is it going to be, Bernie Sanders, old dusty ass? Who knows? But I'm getting a lot of questions in terms of how does the stock market perform, or how does the stock market react during an election year, during a presidential cycle? I'm getting a lot of questions about that. So I'm going to get into some of my initial, predictions, prognostications of early 2024. And then I might even, towards the end of this clip tonight, talk about what I'm starting to see, or what I'm starting to feel in regards to 2025. So towards the end of the clip, I might talk about 2025 for a bit. So make sure you guys pay attention. It's going to be a jam-packed clip. And again, I'm going to call this one the ultimate rally because I think you're going to see a biblical rally either this year or next year. I'm going to give you guys my time frames. I'm going to give you guys the catalyst for each side, the upside, the downside, the bull case, the bear case, the mega bear case. And again, I'm going to go as far out as end of 2023, first half of 2024, and I'll talk a little bit about 2025. So let's get into it. So let's start with where we are right now. We're finishing up spring 2023, and we're about to begin summer 2023. I can't believe it's already here. I always tell you guys, time flies by, man. Time goes by fast as a motherfucker, especially as you get older in life. It just keeps going faster and faster. It's crazy. But summer 2023, I know I've been saying this for 2 or 3 weeks now. I've probably been saying this since the last FOMC meeting. which has been about 2-3 weeks ago now, was the last time they raised interest rates, something like that. It was like last month or so. What are we in May? Yeah. So they raised interest rates earlier this month. Excuse me. So yeah, about 3-4 weeks ago was the last FOMC meeting. During that meeting, it just became abundantly obvious that the Fed is starting to receive more and more political pressure. And again, we talked about this in depth last night, and I think we also talked about it in the following clips after the FOMC meeting when I was talking about what's that bitch's name? Pocahontas. What's her name? The fuck's that bitch's name? Elizabeth Warren. Excuse me. I was talking about Elizabeth Warren versus the Fed, Part 2, or Elizabeth Warren versus Jay Powell and the Federal Reserve, Part 2. And then I came out with another clip called The Dumbasses at the Federal Reserve. And then I said they're not really dumbasses, they're just fucking evil. Like, they're intentionally trying to send this economy into a recession in the name of killing inflation, which again, in their perspective, inflation is actually worse than a recession. So they're willing to pay that price because in their opinion, recession isn't as bad as inflation if they allow inflation to stay high forever. And again, the reason that's important is because the voters who matter the most in this country are old people, and most old people don't work anymore. They live on Social Security or some kind of like fixed income, disability, stuff like that. Most old people who are like 75, 85, 95, 105, they don't really give a fuck about who's hiring at McDonald's or not. They don't care about, the broader economy. They just want to make sure that they have enough money, to pay their rent, to pay their mortgage, to pay for their senior center, senior home fucking treatment, to pay for their medicine, to pay for their bus transportation. Because again, not all old people are rich. Most old people in this country are actually really poor. So a lot of old people can't even afford to live in a senior center. That's actually a luxury these days, because in order to live in a senior center, you would have had to save up enough money to afford it yourself, or your kids or your grandkids or your great grandkids are having to pay those medical bills so you and your significant other can live in a senior center, because those things ain't cheap. Living in a senior home, with all those fucking nurses on staff and they feed you Jello every day, like those things aren't cheap. They're actually really expensive. Trust me, I know. I used to look into them. Because at one point my family was thinking about putting, my grandparents into a senior home, just so that way there was, always somebody available to take care of them if something were to happen, knock on wood, right? So, I remember looking at the prices back then, like, wow, these senior centers are really fucking expensive. They're not cheap, yo. So anyways, though, those are typically the most important voters in this country because they always vote. Millennials, Gen Zs, we kind of vote, but, we don't really care that much, especially if you live in a historically red or blue state, then sometimes it feels like your vote doesn't even matter. So, in large part, the only people who really vote like every single year, no matter what, or every single election cycle, no matter what, is old people, because they ain't really got shit else to do. So anyways, those are the ones who are really getting impacted by inflation the most. And then second is poor people, because for poor people, they're looking at gas prices, food prices, rent prices, and they're not really coming down that much, but their paychecks are still really little. You know what I mean? And I know there's this big old debate like, oh, we need to raise the minimum wage. And then all the landlords in America are like, yeah, raise the minimum wage, si se puede. I always think that's funny. It's hilarious. Like, the people who want minimum wage to go up the most are actually landlords in this country, because as soon as the minimum wages go up, the rents go up. Then all the poor people get mad and they're like, oh, we need to raise the minimum wage again, otra vez. And then all the fucking landlords come out, yeah, si se puede, otra vez. Oh, it's hilarious, man. So I think it's funny when poor people are like, the solution to all our problems is to raise the minimum wage. Meanwhile, all the landlords are like, yeah, si se puede, do it again. I'm telling you, landlords, man, they be giving you guys the business. They're hilarious. So yeah, nobody supports raising wages more than landlords. They love it. Because chances are that home is either paid off or the mortgage is really, really cheap because they bought it, the house, 10, 15, 20 years ago. So either way, whether they bought it during a low mortgage rate environment, they refinance under sub 3% mortgage rates, whatever the case, or they own the house completely, either way, like, they're barely paying anything. They're almost paying nothing for that home, but the rent just keeps going up every single year when you go to renew your lease. So just throwing that out there for everyone who keeps, saying that businesses need to pay their customers or to pay their employees more money. Trust me, the landlord supports you. He's out there rallying with you. He's protesting next to you. I'm telling you, it's savage, but it's true. So anyways, so yeah, so we were talking about, what the Fed is going to do next with interest rates after the last Fed meeting when they raised rates again by 25 basis points to that 5%, Fed's funds rate, give or take. And after that, I made a clip calling, calling it, the dumbasses at the Federal Reserve and how they don't really care about the economy. They just care about inflation, and they're willing to sacrifice the economy in the name of killing inflation. And a lot of people don't agree with it, but in their minds, it's the right thing to do because of how much people are getting impacted by inflation right now. And then there's people like AOC, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders and the crew, and a lot of Republicans as well. It's not just the left. There's a lot of Republicans as well that are looking at the Fed saying, you guys need to slow down with all of these, increases in interest rates because, we don't want you to completely just to destroy the economy. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. Inflation's a big deal, but we don't want you guys to get carried away and do too much, too fast. We don't want you to raise rates too quickly, even though many would argue they already have. But the point is, there's mounting political pressure by both the left and the right. And a lot of conservatives, too, that are just kind of looking at the Fed like, hey, bro, I think you need to calm down because you've been raising interest rates over and 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 over again. Like, bro, calm down. Got them out their way. Like, enough is enough. Let's, take a pause. Let's digest this. Let the economy kind of, let these interest rates filter their way through the economy. And, you guys should probably take a pause this summer in June just to kind of, you know what I mean? Let things sink in and, make their way through the economy because all of the lagging impacts of, higher and higher interest rates, right? So I think there's a lot of politicians that don't really know shit about economics, but they're trying to tell the Fed how to do their job. And the Fed, of course, is kind of like, okay, Senator, okay, Congressman from Wisconsin or middle of buttfuck nowhere, we'll listen to you, the guy with the PhD in something that doesn't even matter. Fine. We'll listen to the fucking Sangano that doesn't even understand basic economics. Yeah, sure. We'll follow your opinion. All right, bro. Let's see how this works out, bro. So I think it's kind of one of those moments. And so because of the mounting political pressure on the Fed, in my opinion, to kind of just do a pause this summer and not raise rates this summer, I think they are going to do a pause. Now, again, do I think they should do a pause? Fuck no. Absolutely not. Hell fucking no. Why? Because I think the Fed is right when they say core inflation is still too high, and they've really done nothing to affect core inflation in the last 18 months. And again, core inflation, right? Most predominantly food prices, gas prices, rent prices, things like that. I don't really see rent prices coming down in a meaningful, significant way this summer. I go to the grocery store like twice a week, 3 times a week. I don't really see groceries coming down. Sometimes it feels volatile. Sometimes groceries will come down a little bit and then it'll spike up again. Then it'll come down a little bit and it'll spike up again. It's like, what the fuck? Like, I feel for families who are trying to like balance a budget and trying to live within their means when every time they go to the grocery store, prices change so dramatically and drastically week by week. I don't know if you guys ever experience that or see that shit, but, for me and my family, we go grocery shopping, like I said, 2-3 times a week. And, we eat out a lot too. I'm not going to lie. The general, his wife and kids, right? We eat out a lot. I'm not going to lie about that. But even still, like, when we go to the grocery store or even when we go somewhere, fucking Chipotle or Chick-fil-A, you know what I mean? Whatever the kids want to eat or, whatever the wifey is in the mood for, fucking Pollo Loco, right? Whatever she wants, like, I'll notice that sometimes prices, like, I don't know, it feels like they kind of just, it feels like they swing up and down too much. You know what I mean? And even at the grocery store, my wife, she's the one in charge of buying all the fruits and veggies and make sure we're eating healthy in this family. Because if it was up to me, we just eat steak and fucking pizza every night, So I'm not the person to be in charge of, what the kids, do and don't eat. If it was up to me, I let them eat ice cream almost every other day. Like I'm really bad with this shit. So my wife's really the one in charge of, picking out the groceries and making sure, we have our veggies and our fruits and the salad and, things are organic and non-GMO this, non-GMO that. Like, she's really big into that. She's one of those women. Like, she's really big into making sure the kids are eating healthy and, I'm going to live a long life and I'm going to be there forever. All this other fucking bullshit that, women really put on a pedestal. So whatever, she's in charge of all that. And so, sometimes she'll go into the grocery aisle and, she'll get all the veggies, the fucking broccoli and the celery. She makes the kids eat celery and then they look at me like, Dad, save me. And I'm like, I can't. It's all your mom's fault. Like she really on them. She gets on their head. Like they're not allowed to, leave the kitchen table until they eat all their veggies, their greens. And she's fair. She's not just going to give them fucking dry celery. She'll put like peanut butter on it or something so it tastes more delicious, right? But either way, the kids are going to eat their celery. They're going to eat their broccoli. They're going to eat their salad. They're going to eat the corn. They're going to eat their fucking, mushrooms, whatever it is. Like, she's going to make sure that they have a balanced diet, that they're not just going to eat pizza every night. You know what I mean? Like, if it was up to me. So, I get it. So I'm grateful she's here because otherwise we'd be all fat as shit right now. So she's doing her best to make sure that we're eating healthy, or at least, making sure we eat as healthy as we can, right? And I think a lot of moms are that way in this country. But what a lot of moms in America will also say is every time they go grocery shopping, Walmart, Costco, Food for Less, fucking you name it, right? When you go to the grocery aisle and you go to like the fruits and the veggies and you go to that section, right? Usually always on the left side, she'll go in there and she'll be like, oh my gosh, babe, the price of a potato went up again, or the price of eggs, the price of milk, the price of fucking, bananas, celery, cucumbers, broccoli, whatever it is, and she'll always point it out to me like, oh, last week it was this much, now it's that much, and this other thing used to be that much, and now it's this much, and I'd be over there like, what? No way, But I think there's a lot of women and a lot of moms in this country who are noticing that price change, where like every other week it feels like the price is going up, price is going down, then it goes back up, then it goes back down, then it spikes up again. And again, I think for a lot of moms who are in charge of grocery shopping, right, for their families, it's really hard to kind of balance or maintain any kind of a budget when the price is like dramatically, changing so quickly, and I think that's why a lot of people are just like so frustrated and irritated with what's going on in the grocery store with food prices. It's not necessarily just because food costs more than it used to. It's also just the volatility around prices. Like for example, this is one last quick story before I move on here. I'm a huge fan of Costco. Me and my family, we go to Costco a lot. And this weekend, I was going to buy some steaks and I was going to put them on the grill, right? Memorial weekend and all this other bullshit, right? No one actually celebrates the holidays like they're supposed to, right? We talked about this last night on the podcast too. But I was going to get some steak, some carne asada, some, cook some rice and beans with that shit. Like, we're going to have a real good, Mexican meal. And we went to Costco, I think Thursday or Friday of last week. And we went to go get the steaks, right? And we're going to let them marinate in the fridge for like a day or two. You know what I mean? Like we're going to go all out. And we go to Costco and we go to the meat section. And we're looking for, some steak, something, right? And my wife was like, oh my God, babe, look, the meat, look, that steak, it was $33 last week. Now it's $43. And I'm over there like, damn, they're doing people dirty like that. Sheesh. Like, I'm still going to buy it anyways. Like, it's not really going to affect me. But I'm looking at a lot of other people kind of like standing next to me. And when my wife said that shit, like, oh, it used to be 33, now it's 43. This one over here used to be 42, now it's 52. Like, everything just went up $10 out of nowhere. Maybe it's because it's Memorial Weekend, or maybe it's because Costco knows that they can get away with that. Who knows? But as soon as my wife said that shit out loud and pointed it out to me, everyone like kind of next to us kind of looked at her and looked at that, and they were like, oh shit, she's right. The Mexican lady's right. They did add $10. It is more expensive than it was last week. Bitches. And you could see it in their face, like, they were kind of like, I'm not going to buy that shit no more. Fuck these bitches. I'm going to go somewhere else. go to fucking Walmart, see if I can get it cheaper there, you know? So a lot of people just kind of turned away and were like, fuck that. And so, it's just kind of like reminded me, that a lot of people are still trying to balance a budget. A lot of people are trying to go grocery shopping on a tight budget. You know what I mean? And I think I don't know, I just feel like that's really frustrating to a lot of people out there, especially moms, when you have a lot of kids or you have a big family or, it's somebody's grandma and, she's trying to feed everyone at home and, there's a lot of people at home because no one can afford to move out anymore. So, there's a lot of moms and, grandmas and titirihuelas and titirihuelas and tias out there, right? And they're trying to go grocery shopping, to feed their family, not just for the weekend, but for the next week or two. You know what I mean? They're trying to get like a week's worth of groceries because, people don't really have as much time to go out and shop anymore because people are working so many hours a week now just to barely break even. So, there's a lot of women at the grocery store and they're frustrated, they're tired, they're exhausted. They're working a lot of hours every single week for, again, their bitch ass manager, their bitch ass supervisor, and that bitch ass company that don't give a fuck about them or their family or their future, right? And when you see them at the grocery store looking at all these prices, you can tell like they're trying to see like, hold on, how much did this shit used to be? How much is it now? And you can tell like you can see it in their face, like it's emotionally taking a toll on them. Like, it's starting to frustrate them. Like, it's pissing them off. Like, dude, I'm trying to make sure that my kids eat their fruits and vegetables, but it's hard because the price of fruits and vegetables and fucking, eggs, bacon, ham, whatever the fuck, you want to get them, it just keeps going higher and higher, or it keeps fluctuating, and the prices will drop, skyrockets, drop, skyrocket. It's like, bro, what the fuck are we doing here? You guys are treating grocery prices like a stripper pole, just going up and down, And again, when you're on a tight budget, I think that's really frustrating for a lot of families. And I think there's a lot of moms looking at that shit like, yo, this is bullshit. And I agree with them. It is fucked up, especially for low income, minority communities, shout out to all the single moms out there trying to make sure that their kids eat fruits and vegetables, but they can't really afford it. And so now they're stuck in the predicament of, do I get my kids as much food as, I can get because they're going to be home all summer? Do I just focus on quantity or do I focus on quality? Because I can get my kids, those greens, those fruits and those vegetables, but it's going to cost me how much? Or I can just go to the grocery aisle and get them some more fucking yogurts and cereal and fucking Lunchables and all this fucking nasty, gross, preservative fucking bullshit where I know it's not going to be good for them. I know it's not healthy. I know it has a bunch of empty calories. I know it's a bunch of fucking carbs. I know it's not, it's not going to be good for their young bodies. But, this Lunchable costs fucking, $1.99 or $1.50, but if I go get them some fucking broccoli or some celery that they don't want to eat anyways, I'm going to have to force them to eat, and they want to charge me $6, $7 for this? Like, at some point, when you're on a tight budget, sometimes a lot of families feel like they can't afford to give their kids fresh fruits or veggies because it's just too damn expensive right now. And you know what I mean? And so, and then on top of that, for all of you guys out there who have, young kids who have babies out there, shout out to all the new moms and the new dads out there. Formula is not cheap. Diapers are expensive. Even baby wipes are more expensive now. Like everything when it comes to taking care of a baby, from formula to wipes to diapers to this to that. Like even that's really expensive now. So again, sometimes there's a lot of parents out there that feel like, you know what, I'll just get them more cereal, or I'll just get them more soda, or I'll get them more Gatorade, or I'll get them more this, get them more that, because I can get more bang for my buck and I can get more quantity. And sometimes really all you need is just quantity, right? And it's not like the parents don't care about their kids. It's not like they don't care about them having a healthy diet or a healthy eating habits or a healthy lifestyle or any of that. It's just when the price of, veggies and fruits and all the good stuff ends up going up in price and all the fucking bad stuff ends up going down in price, sometimes you feel like, fuck it, let me just get them something that I know they're going to eat. Because right now, I just got to make sure that I have enough food for them to eat. And if I can't afford the good stuff, then fuck it, I'm just going to go for the cheap stuff because that's all I can afford right now. And unfortunately, there's a lot of moms experiencing that right now. So anyways, That right there is a good definition and a good breakdown of core inflation and how a lot of, families are dealing with it in terms of balancing it from a budget. And then you look at rent prices. I'm not going to get too much into this, but again, I've been saying this time and time again. We talked about it in depth last night as well. I just don't think rent prices are going to come down meaningfully, especially not this summer. Landlords have all the power. There's not enough homes in this country. Housing shortage, low inventory, not enough supply, not enough supply. Every real estate agent keeps saying this over and over again. It's like, it's no secret. Everyone knows it's the truth. And so these landlords know that, like, there's really not a lot of options out there for a lot of you guys. And because mortgage rates are so high, and the vast majority of you who are listening to this clip tonight, are most likely entry-level buyers. Entry-level buyers are mostly fucked right now, unless you make high six figures. But most of you guys don't make high six figures. Most of you guys listening to me tonight barely make minimum wage, So if you're not making high six figures with you and your spouse, then a lot of you guys can't really qualify for a home loan big enough to buy a house, especially if you live somewhere like in San Diego or LA or, New York right now. Shout out to all my subscribers in New York City, NYU stand up. So, yeah, I just don't see rent prices coming down this summer at all, especially not in a meaningful, significant way. Like, if anything, I think rent prices will probably just tick up again, especially in some cities, like out here in Vegas, Texas, Arizona, even parts of Utah, because there's a lot of people leaving places like San Francisco, Chicago, LA, San Bernardino, fucking ghetto as shit. There's a lot of people in California who are just getting tired of living there. And it's not because of the fucking politics and Governor Newsom's bitch ass. It's just, there's a lot of cities in America that are just crumbling. They're just fucking ghetto. It's a bunch of homelessness, bunch of fucking ratchet people, bunch of fucking hoodlums, gangbangers, thugs, whatever you want to call them. And there's also not really a lot of great jobs out there either. Again, one of the things I always talk about in regards to the labor market is most jobs are just minimum wage, part-time bullshit. So I expect a lot more people to continue to leave California this summer, whether it's because of the politics, whether it's because of the taxes, hint. Taxes in California are fucking disgusting. It's like they don't want you to ever fucking make it and prosper. So between politics, taxes, homelessness, ghetto-ness, joblessness, like there's a multitude of reasons of why people are considering leaving California more and more now. And I get it. Some people are never going to leave. They're going to be fucking California to the day they fucking die. I get it. Motherfuckers refuse to leave LA, right? Born and die in LA. That's the fucking mantra. But there are a lot of other people that, they're getting married, they're starting their families, and you know what I mean? They're looking for a better future and a better life for their wife and kids. And, sometimes they feel like it's just not going to happen in California. So I think there's a lot of people who are looking at their options this summer and maybe moving to Vegas, moving to Texas, moving to Arizona, moving to Utah. I think most of you guys listening to me right now probably have had a lot of friends over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years who moved to Texas, moved to Vegas, moved to Utah, moved to Arizona. And you know what? A lot of those people ended up being able to buy a house. At the very least, they were able to get something that was affordable to rent. And a lot of them were able to get better job opportunities. They're in better neighborhoods now. Their kids are in a better school district now. And, life might not be perfect right now, but it's better than when it used to be if they had just stayed in California, where, again, it's just a bunch of ratchetness, ghetto-ness, homelessness, joblessness, bunch of taxes, bunch of bullshit, bunch of drama, bunch of stress, a bunch of unnecessary shit. So, yeah, there's a lot of people who left California over the last couple of years. They moved to Texas, Arizona, Vegas, Nevada, whatever, Utah. And again, life might not be perfect, but it's probably better now than when it was when they were back in California. Either because the school district's better, because job opportunities are better, housing is more affordable. Maybe some of them could actually afford to buy their own house now. Or it's just less stress and drama, where they are now. So there's pros and cons to everything, but, I think you're going to continue to see a tsunami of people leave California, whether they want to or not, because sometimes it's just, financial decisions. A lot of people just feel like financially it's just too hard to make it in California, and they don't want to be poor forever. And so if leaving California to go to a place like Phoenix, Arizona, Las Vegas, Nevada, Houston, Texas, wherever, somewhere in buttfuck Utah, um, if there's more jobs out there and there's better job opportunities out there, more affordable housing, maybe they have family that lives out there and they like it, right? Again, better school district, better community, safer community, a little bit less ghetto, a little bit less ratchet, right? I think it's probably going to be the right decision for a lot of people this summer. So because of that, if you're a landlord in Nevada, landlord in Arizona, landlord in Texas, I think in certain cities, you probably have the power to raise rent one more time this summer because, again, it's a continuation of an influx of people just constantly leaving California to move into these other cities and other states. And if you're a landlord in those cities and those states, you're probably seeing it every single summer. So I just don't think rent prices are going to come down at all in a meaningful, significant way. And I would argue that in some cities, right, some local real estate markets, real estate will actually not just real estate, but rent prices will tick back up again this summer. You know what I mean? So I'm just not sure. And we talked about this again, like I said last night. I'm not sure how much pain the Fed needs to inflict upon this economy in order to really bring down rent prices in a meaningful, significant way. Let alone, how do you bring down food prices? How do you bring down gas prices? Those are things that are outside the control of the Fed. And yet they just keep raising interest rates anyway. So, again, we'll see how all this plays out. But I think there's a lot of people on the left and a lot of people on the right. And there's just a lot of conservatives too as well. They're looking at this and saying, Fed, you need to calm down. You need to take it easy. Got them out their way. We need time for this economy to digest all of these higher and higher interest rate hikes. And, we think you need to do a pause this summer. And because of the mounting political pressure for them to do a pause, I think they will do a pause this summer. Now, here comes my base case scenario. I think the Federal Reserve will do a pause this summer, even though I don't think they should. Again, I've said it a million times again and again. I do not think the Fed should do a pause this summer. I think they need to do another interest rate increase. However, if it was me, I also want to clarify this as well. I think the biggest thing that the Fed has fucked up with the way they've managed interest rates is that at the end of December of last year, 2022, that was the last time they did a 50-point interest rate hike. And again, we talked about this last night as well, but I think it's important to reiterate it. As soon as they started the year in 2023 only doing 25 basis point interest rate hikes, I think the stock market started to rally. I think the economy started to go boom again. And I think the consumer basically told the Fed to go fuck themselves. Because it feels like the 25 basis point rate hikes are so tiny and so fucking minimal. Like it doesn't even really affect the economy. Like it does, but barely. And I think a lot of consumers and I think a lot of industries and I think a lot of sectors of the economy are just looking at the Fed and they're saying, oh, you're only doing 25 basis point increases? Aw, that ain't shit. That don't even tickle, homie. So I really feel like all of these hikes that they've done, for the entire 2023 thus far have really had a very minimal impact on the economy or the market at large. Like it's had an impact, but obviously not as much as the 50s did. And so I think the biggest mistake they did was, one, not raising interest rates sooner, and saying that inflation was going to be transitory. Remember that shit? And two, I think once they dropped it to only 25 basis point rate hikes, I think that's when the market and the economy and investors started to say, oh, now it's only 25. It used to be 75. Then you only did 50. Now you're only doing 25. Ah, shit. Well, now you're about to do a pause soon. And then after that, you're going to start cutting interest rates. And I think that's what the market is basically predicting or forecasting right now, that the Fed is going to start cutting interest rates in the back half of 2023. Now, again, the Fed is basically saying, hell no, fuck no, not a chance in hell. We're going to keep raising interest rates or at the very least leave interest rates higher for longer. There are no cuts coming in 2023, zero rate cuts happening this year. But the market is basically saying, nah, we think you're running out of ammo. We don't think you have the balls to pull the trigger in the second half of 2023. So I think this whole we need 25 basis point rate hikes, I think it's given credence to that theory. And now I think there's a lot of investors, a lot of momentum, a lot of broader, macroeconomics that are basically just predicting that if you're only doing 25 basis point rate increases at this point, then you're pretty much already towards the end. You're almost finished. And I think that's why this market is pretty much front loading a Fed pivot or a Fed pause. So I think that's the second way they fucked up. The first one was not fighting inflation sooner and calling it transitory. And then the second way was doing weenie ass 25 basis point rate hikes one at a time. And now I feel like that doesn't even tickle this economy. So if it was up to me, I wouldn't do a 25 basis point rate hike this summer. If it was up to me and I was J Powell, I'd drop a 50 burger on that ass tonight and let the market know fucking, loud and clear that we're fucking dead ass serious about not only fighting inflation, but about killing core inflation, even if it means sending this broader economy into a recession. Again, I know some of you guys think that's bullshit and that's not fair, but I'm not telling you the way the world should be, telling you the way the world motherfucking is. And the way it is right now is it's being ran by a Federal Reserve that thinks inflation is worse than a recession, whether you agree with it or not. I happen to agree with it. I understand it, but, it is what it is. That's their prerogative. So, anyways, that's what I would do if I was the Fed. I drop a 50 burger. So going back to my base case prediction for this summer and this ultimate summer rally that I predict is going to be happening soon is, and again, we talked about this last night as well, but I think you will see a pause this summer, even though I don't think they should be. I think that's what they will do because of political pressure. If and when they do the pause this summer in June, I think that is going to cause the markets to possibly skyrocket. I think it's going to possibly cause Bitcoin to go parabolic, which is actually my leading indicator right now. I've said that time and time again. If Bitcoin was to break above 32/35,000, which was the low of summer 2021, remember Bitcoin dropped from like 69K down to like 29K. Remember that shit? And then it went back up to 69K. From a technical analysis perspective, that's what I'm looking for the most. I'm looking at Bitcoin as a leading indicator. If Bitcoin can break above 32,000 and maybe even 35,000 is probably going to be my final confirmation, is probably in that 32,000 to 35,000 range. If it breaks above 32K and 35K, that's when basically I would tell everyone to go back all in on Bitcoin, because at that point the ghost is clear. If Bitcoin ends up having a massive breakthrough or a breakout, as we would call it in the TA field, if Bitcoin breaks above that 35K and it does it with strong momentum, whatever the catalyst is, then that basically means the ghost is clear and we're headed back up to 69K again. And then after that, 69K would be the next line of support, because 69K was the peak in 2021. You break above 69K and now all of a sudden all the 100K Bitcoin people are going to come back out of nowhere, even though it feels like they've been dead and buried for almost 2 years now. But if Bitcoin breaks above 69K, honestly, if Bitcoin breaks above 35K or 32K, all the 100K people are going to be coming out the fucking cemetery left and right like a zombie apocalypse, revenge of the fucking, Bitcoin gurus out here and furus. But the point is, yeah, you break above 35K, it has all the momentum to head straight back up to 69K. Then it hits 69K, and basically that's the last line of resistance. You break above 69, and basically 100K is going to be seen as guaranteed. And that's basically a way you can triple your money over the next 6 to 9 months right there. But again, we need confirmation that this isn't a fake rally, because right now there's a lot of bears, including myself, I'm going to be really honest about this, that do believe that we're basically witnessing a massive fake ass rally, not just in Bitcoin, but also in the stock market at large and in the economy more broadly as well. So, we need confirmation. And I think the confirmation signal for Bitcoin, one last time, is a breakout above 32/35K, that little gap right there. But you need to break it with momentum. If you just kind of break it and only break it by like $100 and then come back down again, that's not really convincing. You need to hit that shit like a running back. You need to hit that shit like a fullback, like an NFL linebacker. You need to crack that bitch wide open. It breaks 35 in a huge, meaningful, significant way, and you wake up one morning and Bitcoin's like 42K, that means you broke that shit with fucking huge, powerful momentum. In that situation, in that scenario, then yeah, basically the orders would be, and I might come out with an emergency podcast this summer if that were to happen, big ass if, but if that were to happen, yeah, I'd come out with an emergency podcast this summer and say, everyone load up 150% on Bitcoin. We're riding it back up to 69K. And then at 69K is basically the final wall, the last line of resistance. And you break again, you break above 69K, and it's game over, 100K, homie. And at that point, everyone's gonna go fucking ballistic and wild. But in that scenario, I'd be curious to what happens with inflation. Does that mean the Fed just gave up its war on inflation, or does that mean they just accepted that inflation's here to stay and there's nothing they can do about it? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what the scenario would be or what the catalyst would be to send Bitcoin that high. I'm just telling you what would happen if it goes that high, right? Now, what can cause it to do that? It would have to be one or two things. It would be the Fed basically gives up its war on inflation, or they basically, and or they just accept that inflation's here to stay and they're never going to get it back down to 2% again. And, they're going to stop at 3% and just take it as it is. You know what I mean? Which would be really fucking stupid, but not impossible. I mean, the Fed's made a lot of policy errors in the past for the last 100 years. So this wouldn't be the first time they fumbled it. You know what I mean? Like, Russell Wilson throwing an interception in the end zone. So you never know. We'll see how it works out. But that's kind of that's my confirmation that the worst is over. That is my final trigger. That's the buy signal. Bitcoin above 30K, 32K, 35K, that little tight range right there. You break that in a hard, meaningful, significant way, and all of a sudden, at that point, we're all jumping on 150% max positions. Use margin if you can, and we're basically going to ride that shit up back to 69K, in my opinion. Now, the other side of the coin is, what happens if we don't break 32, 35K? If we do not break 32, 35K, and again, this is just about Bitcoin specifically. I'm not talking about other stocks, just Bitcoin specifically, because that's really tied to, that's probably the closest correlated thing to like interest rates and the future of interest rates, right? So again, the other side of the coin, which is the bear case, the bear thesis, right, is that Bitcoin does not break above 32, 35K. If Bitcoin does not go above 32 or 35K, then basically this was all a big ass, fake ass, fake ass, fake ass, fake ass motherfucking rally, and it's headed back down to 16K. Now, 16K would be the next line of support. So we talked about, 32, 35K being the buy signal and 69K being the final line of resistance. 16K is the final line of support. If this rally ends up failing and the Fed comes out either June or July, August, whenever, and says that they're going to keep raising interest rates, we don't care about political pressure, inflation is still too high, core inflation is literally fucking killing people, and gas prices too high, rent prices too high, homes are unaffordable, even though you're the one that's raising mortgage rates to begin with, but neither here nor there. If they come out and say basically inflation's still way too fucking high, it's way too fucking sticky, and we're not going to give up on this war, we're going to keep pulling the motherfucking trigger till the clip is empty, and we have unlimited ammunition at our disposal. If they come out and they just keep raising rates in June, and then again in like July, August, if they do some shit like that, then that could be the sell trigger, which would cause Bitcoin to basically collapse and fall on its knees, and then Bitcoin would go back down again. If Bitcoin goes back down again, how low does it go? In my in my bear case thesis, bear case, right? I gave you the bull case. The bear case is we retest that 16K one more time, and then at that point, we either hold 16K or we break down below 16K. In my opinion, this is just my opinion, I think we break below 16K. Now, we might bounce on it once or twice, but I think it'll be like a little small bounce, right? Little tiny itty bitty chiquito bounce. And we might bounce on 16K for like a day or two, like a little mini bounce, and then just break down fully all over again. And if you break below 16K on Bitcoin, I think the next line of support is probably 12K or 10K. And ultimately, that's been my price target all along. I think this year, specifically, just this year, not next year, this year, Bitcoin is going to break below 10K, or at least hit 10K. Now, so if it hits 10K and maybe 10K is a low, that's great. I'd appreciate that because, again, that's really what I want to happen. I want Bitcoin to go back down to 10K again. That way I can buy even more Bitcoins than I had before. You know what I mean? Like I could double my stack real quick. So that's actually why I'm so bearish. I'm so bearish because I want to buy more at a cheaper price. So I'm doing it for selfish reasons, but I'm being transparent about it. So I think that's kind of what I see there. And I've been calling for 10K Bitcoin for probably a year now, ever since Bitcoin fell below 30K last summer. Because I think last summer, if you guys remember, like last March or April, Bitcoin was like at 48K. You guys remember that shit? To start off the year last year, Bitcoin was like 48, 46K. Remember that? Good times, right? Um, and then once it broke below 30K, which again was the summer 2021 lows, once it failed to hold 30K and it just fell apart, that's when I said, nah, homie, I think we're just going to keep going lower after that. So I've been calling for 10K for probably about a year now. We got down to 16K, but then from 16K late last year in December all the way here to fucking June, it's basically almost doubled up to 28, 29K. But again, it has not hit that 32, 35K mark yet. It is still barely 28, 29. It is not officially broken through that 32,000 slash 35,000 benchmark in a meaningful, significant way. It keeps hitting resistance around 29.30, and every time it hits it, comes back down, then it goes back up and hits it, and then it comes back down. The bulls are saying it's only a matter of time before it break through. Now again, if the Fed does a pause this summer, could that be the catalyst to allow it to finally break through 32K? Possibly. And if it does, and it breaks, again, 32, 35K in a meaningful, significant way because the Fed ended up doing a pause this summer, then there you go. You know what I mean? We're riding the fucking train until the next FOMC meeting. But if it doesn't, and it ends up just breaking down and fall apart again, then watch out below, because I think we're going to easily retest 16K and possibly finally get to my 10K price target. We'll see. You know, you never know how this thing's going to play out. But basically, those are my buy signals and sell signal. It really, I think, all is predicated on what the Fed does this summer. If you see a pause, then I think that's when you see a massive rally in the economy, in the stock market, and in Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is my leading indicator. Stock market, the economy, and Bitcoin. Bitcoin is my leading indicator. So if, again, I know I'm repeating myself a lot here, but it's because I want to make sure you guys all have the game plan and you're not fucking texting me or blowing me up during the summer when I'm on vacation with my wife and kids. General, what do we do now? Save us, save us. Like, bro, I'm trying my best to fucking explain this to you. Summer, FOMC meeting. They pause, Bitcoin rallies, wait for it to break 32/35K in a meaningful, significant way. If it does that, go 100% long on Bitcoin, use margin, and at that point, it's going to be a 6-week massive fucking rally from June all the way until July, August. And how high does it get to? Who the fuck knows? But I think it's going to be a gigantic motherfucking rally and possibly get back up to 69K, which again, we'll either hit it and get rejected and fall all the way back down again, or we're going to hit it and break through that bitch once and for all and head straight to 100K. Do I think that's likely? Fuck no. But I want to tell you what the game plan is if that were to play out. On the other side, if the Fed does not do a pause this summer and it ends up just doing another rate hike to send a clear message to the stock market, and or Bitcoin just fails to break 32, 35K no matter what, even if the Fed pauses, if Bitcoin just says in either situation we're just not going to rally above 30K, we still don't have enough momentum, and it just falls apart and rolls over, then that's really bearish. And that to me tells me that it's just not enough conviction in the market by market participants. So again, that's kind of actually my base case. I don't think we're going to break above 35 or 32K. If it does, I'll be ready. I'll be prepared. I'll have my finger on the trigger, and I'll come out with an emergency podcast this summer if that were to happen. But my base case is no. My base case is that we're going to continue to hit 30K as resistance, and we're going to break down eventually. And when we do, we're going to head back to 16K. And I don't think we hold 16K this time. I think we break below and head straight for 10K, which is when I would basically be reaccumulating again. So that's pretty much my base case, bull case, bear case, whatever you want to call it. That's how I kind of see things playing out. Now, in terms of the economy and the stock market, same thing. If they do a pause, This summer, I would expect the economy to catch on fire. Although I would argue that the economy is already catching on fire again because rich people and upper middle class people are basically going on nonstop vacations right now. They're enjoying their summer. They're going to resorts. They're going to casinos. They're going to theme parks. They're going to restaurants. They're going to strip clubs. They're basically going everywhere. You know what I mean? And again, I live out here in Vegas, so I get a chance to see it firsthand. But, we talked about this last night extensively, but we've been listening to the CEO of Airbnb. We listened to the CEO of Uber. We listened to the CEO of Lyft. Listened to the CEO of the casinos. Last Friday, I got a chance to listen to an interview by the CEO of MGM Grand, the MGM resorts. And listening to the casino owners, listening to the Airbnb CEO, Lyft, Uber, restaurants, the airports are fucking jam-packed for Memorial Weekend. There's just a lot of traveling that happened during this 3-4 day weekend. And I think this summer you're going to see more of it. I think rich people will remain immune from interest rates. They just have too much money to care about higher interest rates. I think upper middle class people still have too much disposable income. And most importantly, I think lower middle class people and poor people are going to continue to max out their credit cards this summer and pull out more loans. And I know that really upsets me and that really pisses me off because I don't understand how people can be that stupid and be so fucking selfish and live in that mentality of it's my life and I want to live it now. But you guys see it too, probably firsthand, because I know vast majority of you guys, and this isn't to make fun of you, but most of you guys listening to me are probably poor. And if I ask you, like, how much debt do your friends have? How much debt does your family have? How much debt do, the people in your life have? A lot of you guys tell me all the time that a lot of stupid people in your life that just keep using credit cards, and then they apply for another credit card, and then they apply for another credit card, and then they apply for another credit card, and then they're pulling out loans here, and then they ask their mom for a loan, they ask their dad for a loan, they ask their brother for a loan, they ask their sister for a loan. You know what I mean? And then people aren't making car payments on time, and that's why car repossessions are at a 20-year high. And all these people in your life, they're just not paying their bills, and they're just stacking up debt, stacking up debt, stacking up debt. And then when you question them about it, they're like, nah, fuck it, bro. Gotta have fun now while I'm young, dog. And it's just so fucking frustrating that they basically refuse to save money. They refuse to invest. They've accepted that they're going to be poor forever and they're going to work on their hands and knees forever. And they just don't care, because it's my life and I want to live it now mentality. So because I continue to see a lot of poor people and lower middle class people just spending money, and they refuse to fucking save it for anything important or significant, I think you're going to see people just continue to go out this summer regardless of what the Fed does with interest rates. So I think the economy and therefore inflation is going to skyrocket this summer and just fucking explode to the upside regardless of what the Fed does with interest rates in June. So I think the economy is going to rally no matter what, because poor people just don't give a fuck. They've just accepted fucking financial slavery till the day they die in the name of having fun and having a good time while they're young. So I think, I think the economy will not care, broadly speaking, in terms of restaurants, cruise lines, resorts, casinos. From that perspective, I don't think they care what happens with interest rates this summer. I think the only thing that cares about interest rates in June, whether they do a pause or another hike, is going to be asset classes like the stock market and then leading indicators like Bitcoin. Those are honestly the only two things, stocks and Bitcoin, that really care about if there's a pause or if there's another hike this summer. But the economy at large, I don't think it really gives a fuck. So again, this to me is going to be the first of 2, potentially 3 rallies we see from now until the end of the year. Now, I would argue that the stock market's really been rallying all year. So has Bitcoin, up like 70-80% since the, Christmas lows. And you look at a lot of stocks, whether it's Nvidia, whether it's Tesla, whether it's Apple, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Google, whether it's Microsoft, all of them as well up 40, 50, 60, 70% since the Christmas lows at the end of last year. And so I think in order for that rally to continue, in order for that momentum to keep going to the upside, I think the only way that happens is if the Fed ends up doing this inevitable, quote unquote, inevitable pause in June. And if they do the pause in June, the way that I'm going to be playing it is probably going to be Bitcoin. But again, I'm not going to just load up 150% long on Bitcoin just because the Fed does a pause this summer. I'm going to wait for the pause, and then I'm going to wait for a breakout above 32, 35K. So the pause may be the catalyst, but the trigger is going to be Bitcoin 32, 35,000. So I'm not just going to buy everything again just because the Fed did a pause. I'm waiting for the pause first, and then I'm waiting for the reaction to the pause. And the reaction to the pause I'm looking for is in Bitcoin above 32, 35,000. If they do a pause and Bitcoin still doesn't break above 32, 35,000, then that to me is bearish. So again, it's not just the pause, it's the reaction to the pause. I want to make that clear too, right? Not just about the pause, it's the reaction to the pause. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. Now again, I don't think they should do a pause, but if they do a pause and Bitcoin breaks above 32,000, then basically, yeah, we're off to the races, and this is going to be a fucking awesome rally this summer. And you know, I'll be happy to see Bitcoin rally back up to potentially 69K again, but I'll also be disappointed that we weren't able to nail the lows when Bitcoin was 15K. You know what I mean? Remember last year it was like 15, 16,000. So yeah, if Bitcoin ends up continuing its rally this summer, I'll be happy because I'll be all on it. But I'll also be disappointed because I basically missed the bottom and I had to buy it at 32,000. You know what I mean? So it'll be bittersweet. It'll be bittersweet. I'll be happy that I was able to jump on it and ride that rally this summer, but disappointed because we missed the bottom. So that's kind of like, that's one scenario. I think it's unlikely that happens, but it's a possibility that it happens. Again, my base case is that they don't, my base case is that even with the pause, they still don't break above 32,000. And it just ends up rolling over and saying, nope, not enough momentum here. And then hopefully we see it back down to 16K and then hopefully back down to 10K. And then that's when basically I would just load up again because I'm really, really hoping to load up on a bunch of Bitcoins at 10K with a motherfucking S on my chest. So anyway, so that's the first rally, guys. The second rally is actually more clear. I think the second rally is more important rally. The second rally we can see this year would be in December. And the reason I think December could be the next rally is because I think if the Fed continues to raise interest rates in June and then does it again in July, August, and then does it again in September, then does it again in November, and then does it again in December, right? Like eventually they're going to keep raising interest rates, but eventually they're going to have to pause. Eventually they're going to have to pivot. And I think the reason the Fed will eventually pause and pivot is because I think eventually this economy just is going to basically crash, and or I think Biden and all the Democrats are basically going to force the Fed to stop raising interest rates because they're going to say, you guys took too long to kill inflation, and now I need to do my best to go get reelected in 2024. And in order for Biden to get reelected in 2024, he can't have, interest rates too high because that means the economy is still basically stagnated or the economy is falling off a cliff. And in either of those situations, if the economy is stagnated or if the economy is falling off a cliff, there's going to be a lot of people who don't want to vote for Joe Biden's old ass. And so I think the best chance for Joe Biden to get reelected in 2024, November 2024, is if the Fed starts to cut interest rates in 2024. If the Fed starts to cut interest rates in 2024, regardless if we're in a recession or not, then all of a sudden asset prices are going to start going up and through the roof again. If asset prices are going up and through the roof again, and stocks are going up, and real estate valuations are going up, and Bitcoin's going up, and everything's going up in fucking prices, then all of a sudden people feel better about themselves because they feel better about their finances, they feel better about money, they feel better about the economy, they feel better about economics, they feel better about their fucking, their fucking financial devastation. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, the Fed is cutting interest rates. My home is worth more again. And Bitcoin's going up again. And stocks are soaring again. And stocks are pumping again. And meme stocks are going through the moon again. And we go back to all that fucking bullshit, all over again. So again, I think no matter what, the Fed will cut interest rates next year. And I think the earliest that they'll cut interest rates is going to be December of this year, or February/March of next year, right? But at some point, whether it's late this year or early like spring, which is actually my base case target of next year, eventually they will have to cut interest rates. Um, because at that point, the economy is either going to be in shambles or um, the administration is going to say enough is enough. It's time for me to get reelected again. And so I think in either situation, whether they're trying to resuscitate the economy or they're just trying to, help Biden get reelected because they're told to, um, I think the Fed will cut interest rates in 2024, probably spring 2024. And that's just kind of my base case target. They could do it sooner. Who the hell knows? But I just don't see it happening. The earliest I see them cutting rates would be that December FOMC meeting in 2023. Or base case is probably spring 2024, spring of next year. And when they eventually do cut interest rates, again, regardless if it's to save the economy because it's in a full blown recession, or it's because the Biden administration tells them, I need you guys to help me get reelected, either situation, they're going to be cutting interest rates in 2024. When that happens, I think 2024 is going to be a good year for the stock market. I think it's going to be a fucking huge rally for Bitcoin and the Bitcoin market. And I think it's going to be a great year for real estate all over again, because now real estate will be in a situation where we still have a housing shortage in this country, but now all of a sudden mortgage rates are coming back down again. If you go into 2024 and you start to lower interest rates, which lowers mortgage rates, and you still have low fucking inventory in the market, sheesh, this market gonna motherfucking go boom! And all the entry level buyers will still be fucked because you guys didn't spend 2023 fixing your credit score, improving your FICO score, saving up money for a down payment, fixing your debt to income ratio, or fucking, improving your finances at all. So that's why I say for 2023, I really want you guys to, like, I'm not saying don't have fun this summer. I'm not saying stay home and be depressed and be sad and frustrated about your life this summer. I'm saying, like, try to kill your debt, try to fix your income, try to fix your debt to income ratio, improve your FICO score, kill off all that bullshit ass fucking credit cards and loan debt you got going on, and really just like focus on your finances this year. Because next year, my base case all along has been that they would cut interest rates in 2024. Because at that point, the economy is either in a full-blown recession or the Biden administration is saying, hey, Fed, it's time for you guys to hurry up and help me get reelected. In either situation, the Fed is cutting interest rates in 2024. Whether it's first half of 2024, the middle of 2024, late 2023, it doesn't fucking matter. Eventually, the Fed pivot was always inevitable. I just didn't see it happening in 2023 at all. But now we're in the summer of 2023. Time is flying by. Core inflation is still way too high. So that's why in the meantime, in between time, I don't think they should do a Fed pause. I think they need to keep raising interest rates, even though people like Elizabeth Warren are demanding that they do a pause. I think they should tell them to go fuck themselves and go study economics. But that's just me. So anyways, so if 2024 we start to cut interest rates, which is my base case, spring 2024 we start to cut interest rates, I think Bitcoin goes parabolic one more time, and I think that would be the time for Bitcoin to finally break above 30K in a hard, meaningful, significant way. I don't think Bitcoin will break 30K this year in a hard, meaningful, significant way. I think all of this is just another fake rally before we head back down to 16K and then maybe eventually 10K. But, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I'll jump on the Bitcoin bandwagon again at 32, 35K if I have to. It'll be bittersweet because I'll be riding the momentum to the upside, but it also means that I missed the bottom to the downside. So it'll be a bittersweet moment for me, but hopefully it works out like I predict. And, everything just kind of just eventually just fucking rolls over. Not just stocks, not just crypto, not just the economy, but Bitcoin included. And, that way, in the first half of 2024, inflation, including core inflation, which again, I'm not sure how they get rid of core inflation. I feel like that fundamentally is just here to stay, but whatever. At that point, early 2024, they can start to cut interest rates in a slow but methodical way. That's going to give a huge boost to the real estate market with lower mortgage rates, coming to the real estate industry. And then Bitcoin can finally break 30K. Stocks can finally have a real, substantial rally, and the economy will finally get the green light to, for people to start spending money again. But before we get there, I think we still need to see a lot more pain. But the Fed is going to have to hurry up and cause that pain, because right now the economy, the stock market, Bitcoin, and investors and spenders are all telling the Fed to go fuck themselves. And right now they have less than 6 months now, in my opinion, to get the job done. Because I think in 2024, I don't think the administration is going to allow them to raise interest rates anymore. So they basically got 6 months to get the job done, in my opinion. So anyways, so 2024 I think is going to be the actual rally. In 2024, I think that's going to be the actual fundamental, the worst is over, the worst is behind us, and now we can go back to buying every single dip again rally. And I think at that point, the war on inflation should be over. If it's not over, it's going to be forced to end, whether they want it or not. And so at that point, I think we can go back to just buying stocks every single day and not have to worry about what's happening in the economy. Because at that point, Biden, again, whether the economy's in a recession or Biden just tells them to stop raising interest rates, in either situation, I think 2024 is going to be really good for the economy. It doesn't mean we're going to start off the year really good. It just means throughout the course of the year, it's going to continue to get better and better and better. And I think by the time we get into November of 2024, which is the actual election day, right? November 2024, I think at that point, real estate market will be better than it is today. Stocks are going to be better than it is today. Bitcoin is going to be higher than it is today. And asset classes are going to be higher than it is today. And I think that's going to be a great day for investors. That's going to be a great day for hodlers. And that's going to be great for people who understand the power of compound interest. And people who are able to fix their finances, boost their portfolios, fix their income, fix their debt to income ratios, improve their FICO scores, and stack as much money as they could in investments. And I think that's going to be the victory day, November 2024. Because going up into that day, I think Biden is going to do his best to make sure that the economy is as strong as possible. And that's going to mean lowering interest rates as much as possible. And then after 2024, we get into 2025. I'll talk about this for about 4 or 5 minutes before I end the podcast this evening. But 2025 is really simple. I think 2025 gets to who's going to win the election and how that's going to impact the stock market, how that's going to impact real estate, and how that's going to impact the economy. And what I will say is this. If Biden gets reelected, I think Bitcoin is going to go through the roof. Because if Biden gets reelected, I think him and his administration are going to continue to print money left and right. Whether you like it or not, whether you agree with it or not, whether you think politically that's the right thing to do or not. And I know some of you are going to say, yeah, but if they just keep printing money, then the Fed's going to have to keep raising interest rates. That's true. If Biden ends up getting reelected and they keep printing money and then inflation comes back all over again and then the Fed has to raise rates all over again, I think that's going to impact the economy and that's going to impact the stock market, and I think that's going to impact the real estate market. But I don't think that's going to impact the Bitcoin market, because Bitcoin doesn't care about interest rates as much as it cares about the amount of money being printed. Because when you look at commodities like gold and silver, basically the reason they keep going up for the last 200 years, 300 years, 400 years, 500 years, isn't because more people are buying gold and silver. It's because governments around the world keep printing more and more money. So if they just keep printing more and more money around the world, but the amount of gold and silver basically remains the same, quote unquote, around the world, then that means the value of the gold and silver is worth more and more around the world. Because you can't print more gold, you can't print more silver. Yeah, we're trying to mine as much as we can, but we've already mined most of the world's gold and silver. So there's not really a lot left to mine. Kind of like Bitcoin. Most of the Bitcoins have already been mined. Not all of them. There's still a lot out there that haven't been mined. But 80% of all the Bitcoins have already been mined into existence. So there's really not that many left to be mined, just like gold and silver. So if governments around the world start printing money, regardless if it's fucking, stimulus checks or, infrastructure bills or whatever the fuck the reason is, if they continue to spend more money and print more money, that's just going to make the price of gold, silver, and Bitcoin continue to skyrocket. So even if interest rates go up again in 2025, 2026, 2027, it won't matter because gold, silver, and Bitcoin don't care about interest rates. They care about money supply. They care about the supply of money around the world and the amount of printing of money around the world. So in my opinion, if Biden, and this is just my really early predictions, if Biden does get reelected, I think that's going to be biblical for Bitcoin because I think him and his administration are going to continue to pass more bills, spend more money. And I know a lot of you guys are saying, oh, well, every president just spends more money. I get that. I'm just saying Biden and his administration especially love to spend money and print money. And if that happens, yeah, interest rates will have to go up again in the future in 2025, 2026, 2027, because that just means inflation is going to come back skyrocketing. But I don't think Bitcoin's going to care about the interest rate hikes again in the future. I think it's just going to care about the money supply in the future because that's what gold, silver, and Bitcoin are actually more tied to. It's not really impacted as much by interest rates as much as it's tied to the supply of money. And if they just continue to print more money, then that basically means the value of Bitcoin, gold, and silver continue to skyrocket. That's why recently when the administration said we're going to, pass a bill to raise the debt ceiling and Republicans and Democrats agree to raise the debt ceiling to avoid U.S. debt default, right? Guess what that basically means? That means more money printing, more money spending. And if they're going to continue to spend more money and print more money, then guess what happens to Bitcoin and gold and silver? They continue to go up because now all of a sudden there's more money. You see my point? So because if you keep printing more money, you're basically devaluing the power of the money. And gold, silver, and Bitcoin, you can't really print any more of them. Therefore, the value of those things end up going up because there's a scarcity of it. There's only so many Bitcoins that will ever exist. 21 million Bitcoins. Meanwhile, with money, if they just keep printing more and more and more, then there is no limit to how much money can exist in the world. You see my point? Versus Bitcoin, gold, and silver, there's a limit to it. So that's why the value of those things keep going higher as the value of the dollar keeps going lower. So, anyways, so that's kind of like a dummy down, breakdown of Bitcoin and gold and silver economics for you. So, again, one more time, if Biden gets reelected, I think that's going to be biblical for Bitcoin, but it's going to be bad for stocks, bad for real estate, and bad for the economy in the sense that he would probably print more money during his second tenure, which means higher interest rates again, because they'd have to fight the war on inflation again. Even if the administration forces them to give up on the war on inflation in 2024, after he gets reelected, if he gets reelected, he'll basically allow them to continue the war again in 25, 26, 27. And I know some of you guys are going to be like, that sounds stupid as shit. Yeah, politics are stupid as shit. Get used to it. Get over it. So, anyways, that's my base case for a Biden re-election. My base case for a Trump getting elected and Papa Trump coming back into office, I think that would be, if Trump comes back into office, I think Bitcoin will do great, but not as great. Because I still think Trump is going to try to spend a lot of money on his border wall bullshit. And we got to build the wall and national security and all this other fucking bullshit. Even though the cartels don't even really use the wall. They just use the tunnels under the wall. Some of you guys know exactly what the fuck I'm talking about. So, it doesn't really do a lot. Build a wall, don't build a wall. Who gives a fuck? No one's actually talking about the tunnels underneath the wall. That to me is 1,000 times more important. But whatever, neither here nor there. So Bitcoin will still do great during a Trump administration because he's still going to need a lot of money to fund some shit. I think it would do better under Biden than it would Trump, but it would still do good under Trump, just not as good. So if Trump gets elected, Bitcoin is still going to be, it would still have a huge bull run. But to me, if Biden gets reelected, because I think Biden would print 10 times more money than Trump, just my opinion, you don't have to agree with me or not, I think Bitcoin would go biblical under Biden. But it would still do really, really good under Trump. Just my opinion. I think the difference is if Trump comes into office, Trump's economic policy really caters towards small businesses and real estate. And what he loves to do in order to pump up small businesses, real estate, and large corporations in the S&P 500 is he loves to cut taxes. So if he ends up coming back to office, yeah, maybe the Fed continues to raise interest rates, maybe they don't, but the main thing he's going to do is start to cut taxes again for small businesses, entrepreneurs, innovators, all of that. And if he starts to cut taxes, then all of a sudden, even if interest rates are going higher, the stock market could still go higher anyways, because even though interest rates are higher, taxes for those large businesses like Apple, Google, Microsoft, Tesla are going to go lower. So if he cuts taxes for all the large corporations in this country, they're still going to be able to execute and perform at a high level. So because of that, I think in the Trump administration, you can see interest rates go higher, but you could actually still see a lot of businesses thrive, a lot of large corporations especially thrive, because they're going to be the ones who benefit the most from lower taxes. And you're going to see the real estate market start to fucking boom, because even though mortgage rates might go higher, he's going to cut a lot of the fucking taxes associated with the real estate industry. So it'll kind of be like a wash, if you will. So, yeah, I think versus Biden, I don't really think he cares about real estate prices in terms of valuation. I think Biden wants homes to be more affordable, but he's not necessarily. I don't think Biden really cares if the value of real estate goes up or down in this country. You know what I mean? Like, I think he's more focused on like Section 8 and public housing for all the people he's letting into this country. So in my opinion, you know, I think Biden's probably better for Bitcoin, but I think Trump is better for real estate. He's probably better for large corporations because he's going to cut the taxes for large corporations who benefit the most from lower taxes. And he's going to help out a lot of key parts of this industry that he cares about more than Biden, whether you think that's fair or not fair, right? Like Trump really cares about he cares about specific industries and sectors of this economy more than Biden. Versus Biden, he cares about them, but in a different way, right? So, for example, Biden really just wants more Section 8 housing and more shit like vouchers. And I think Biden wants more real estate investors, and he caters more to the real estate agents and the real estate investors and the home flippers. And you know what I mean? Like he caters more to that crowd, the big money in real estate. And I think Biden caters more towards Section 8 and housing and welfare for people in real estate. You know what I mean? So they cater to two different groups in the real estate market, in my opinion. And then when it comes to Bitcoin, again, I think Bitcoin would do better under Biden because I think he would print more money than Trump would. Trump would still print money, don't get me wrong, but not as much money. So I think Bitcoin would be better under Biden than it would Trump. And then finally, the stock market would do better under Trump than Biden because if he cuts taxes for large corporations across the world, the large corporations are going to benefit more than the small businesses would. But small businesses would still, prosper, tremendously. But large businesses like Apple, Tesla, Microsoft, and Google would obviously benefit the most because they're the ones who pay taxes the most, quote unquote. So that's kind of my base case for 2025. And then in terms of like outliers, Governor Newsom, Governor Abbott, Governor DeSantis, any of those yahoos, I don't have a prediction on them yet because I'd have to hear what they say on the debate stage. And I'd have to hear what kind of policies they would implement if they were to be elected for president of the United States. So, I don't care if it's Governor Abbott, Governor DeSantis, Governor Newsom, Governor who gives a fuck. I don't really have an early prediction on any of them and how the economy would do or Bitcoin or stocks or real estate would perform under them as president because I would need to hear more about what kind of economic policies, foreign policy, what they're going to do with the key strategic petroleum reserve. Are they going to try to drill more oil in this country? Are they going to do business with Russia if they get elected? What's going to happen with the Saudis? What's the relationship with the Chinese? What's going to happen with interest rates? How much do they care about inflation? Do they care about inflation more or do they care about a recession more? What's their number one priority? Avoid a recession or kill inflation? Are they going to basically make the Fed reverse course, or are they going to tell the Fed to keep going, right? And right now, DeSantis hasn't really publicly come out and said anything about interest rates. Not to my knowledge. I could be wrong about this. And Governor Abbott, Governor Newsom, Governor who gives a fuck, all these other people running for president, I haven't heard really them say anything. They all say, oh, inflation is so bad. But then they also turn around and said, oh my God, the economy is deteriorating. And it's like, bro, you got to choose one. Do you want to kill inflation or not? So I don't really know if they would like force the Fed to stop raising interest rates and just let inflation stay here forever, or they would tell the Fed to keep going and kill inflation no matter what the cost. Like, I'm not really sure what their policy would be on that. Again, kill inflation or avoid a recession. Excuse me. So we'd have to see what they have to say on the debate stage. And again, what's foreign policy? Because the root cause of inflation is not buying oil from Russia, having to buy it from the Saudi Arabia or Venezuela, who don't give a fuck about us, and all this other fucking bullshit. Our supply chain always coming from China, even though it's cheap as fuck. What are they going to do about that? So I don't really have a base case of how the stock market, the economy, or Bitcoin at large would perform under DeSantis, under Governor Newsom, under Governor anyone, because I have to hear more. I have to hear more from them on the debate stage. And then last but not least, the AOCs, the Bernies, the fucking Elizabeth Warrens, I give them zero chance to get elected. But if they were to be elected, I think the stock market would crumble. I think real estate would crash. And I think Bitcoin would go to the moon. Because at that point, they would basically raise taxes to the motherfucking ceiling. And all the rich people would try to avoid taxes and avoid getting their money basically taken from them. And they would all try to hide out in Bitcoin for as long as possible. So, and I know this isn't me being funny, I'm just being honest. If Elizabeth Warren, AOC, or Bernie Sanders gets elected, they're going to absolutely decimate the stock market because all of them hate how much money these companies are making, and they're barely paying any taxes as is, even though Trump would actually lower their taxes even more. But anyways, yeah, if any of those three, Bernie, AOC, or Elizabeth Warren, get elected, stock market's crashing, real estate is going to collapse, and Bitcoin's going to go to the moon because of their extreme money spending, which would be 10 times worse than Biden. That's just my opinion, whether you like it or not. So that's kind of my base cases, my initial base cases, super early predictions for 2025, and how different asset classes would perform under different presidents. And again, 2024, I think no matter what, the Fed is lowering interest rates, not raising interest rates, because I think at that point, the economy is either going to be in a full-blown recession, or, Biden's just going to say, you know what, fuck inflation, help me get reelected. And then after I get reelected, you can go back to fighting inflation. But for 1 year and 1 year only, I need you to help me get reelected. So let's start lowering interest rates. And the Fed's going to tell Biden, yeah, but if we give up the war on inflation now, just to help you get reelected, then when we get back to work in 2025, we're going to have to raise rates even more, because that means we're basically going to let inflation run wild for a year. But Biden might tell him, go F yourself, do what I tell you to do, and just lower interest rates going into the election. And yeah, I know that's going to make inflation just skyrocket, but fuck it. It's also going to make stocks skyrocket. It's going to make Bitcoin skyrocket. It's going to make real estate skyrocket. And then everyone's going to be happy with me. And I can say that I saved the economy, even though I basically just allowed inflation to run wild. I'm going to say I saved the economy. And there you go. I defeated COVID, and I saved the economy from a recession. Greatest president ever. And I think to a lot of stupid ass fucking voters, they're going to accept it. And to be honest, if it ends up being Trump versus Biden, there's going to be a lot of people that just vote for Biden just because they hate Trump. And there's going to be a lot of people that vote for Trump because they hate Biden. So honestly, I don't really know how much it impacts his perception. But I will say this, economically speaking, when the stock market's hitting a new all-time high and real estate is really high and Bitcoin's going up, the chances of that president getting reelected, regardless of what their policy is really, really high. Because for a lot of voters, they don't give a fuck about anything except their portfolio and their wallet. And if you go into an election and that voter that doesn't care about anyone but himself sees his portfolio and his 401k at an all-time high, and Bitcoin's going up, and the value of his home is at an all-time high too as well, then most of them are going to be like, hell yeah, keep it going, Biden. You know what I mean? That's Uncle Biden for you, I tell you what. So there's a lot of voters that don't really vote with their principles or their morals or their ethics. They just vote with their wallet. And as long as their portfolios are going up and stocks are going up and Bitcoin's going up and real estate's going up, there's a lot of people that would just say, fuck it, give me more of that. So again, whether the economy's in a recession at the end of this year or not, or Biden just tells the Fed to go fuck themselves and help me get reelected no matter what, I think 2024 is going to be a good year because of this. And then in 2025, we'll see what happens. Again, if Biden does get reelected, I think Bitcoin's going to go fucking through the roof in 2025. But I do think that real estate, stocks, and the economy can suffer in 2025 because they're more impacted by higher interest rates in the market versus Bitcoin, gold, and silver really don't care about interest rates as much as they do about the supply of money in the world and the amount of money printing in the world. So that could be a situation where Bitcoin once again diverges itself from real estate and stocks and the economy and just continues to go up even if interest rates go up in 2025 because of the fact it's more tied to the money supply. So that's kind of just my, overarching themes there for 2024. I think 2024 is going to be a good year no matter what because interest rates will go down in 2024, whether because the economy is in a recession or because Biden tells the Fed to go fuck themselves. And then 2025 is really just based on who gets elected and who doesn't. And then as far as 2023, one more time, we'll wait to see what the Fed does in June. If they do the pause, then great. I think stocks can rally, the economy can rally, and I think Bitcoin could possibly rally. And again, my confirmation signal is going to be Bitcoin breaking up above 35K. If they don't pivot or Bitcoin for whatever reason still doesn't break above 35, then that means something bigger is happening underneath the hood of the car, and that means something bad is happening, and that means that this economy is falling apart anyways. And I think that will be my confirmation that I was right, and this economy is about to fall on its fucking knees, and the unemployment rate is finally about to skyrocket. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, these are the next 3 rallies that I see happening in the world today. This is what I see happening for the rest of the year today, and this is what I think can happen in the economy, in the stock market, and in the world at large next year and the following year, based on what I see today. So ladies and gentlemen, take it as you will. Take it with a grain of salt. These are just the thoughts of the one, the only fucking general. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast this evening. I hope you guys have been enjoying the podcast for the last 3 or 4 years now. And I hope you guys have a good summer, because this summer I'm going to be off enjoying vacation with my wife and kids, with my family. And if anything happens that's, an emergency, I will come out with an emergency podcast this summer. Otherwise, I bid you guys farewell. I have 3 or 4 more clips coming out this week, maybe 1 or 2 pre-recorded clips coming out next week. But other than that, that's all I got for you guys. I hope you guys have found this entertaining. I hope you guys found it very informative. I hope you guys have found this educational, motivational, inspirational, and I hope you guys have really been impacted by this, because I try my best every night to make sure I impact people's lives and the way they live their lives as much as possible. So thank you guys for riding with me. Thank you guys for listening to me. And thank you guys for supporting the one, the only, the motherfucking general, Magallon Entertainment. Other than that, to all the broke bitches out there that keep on spending your money on motherfucking stupid shit, I hope you have a good summer, because you're about to be a broke bitch to the day you fucking die. Que te vaya bien, way, because you're going to be poor for a long, long time. Thank you for listening.
les vaya bien, que les vaya bien. No te extrañaré, quédate con él. Que te vaya bien, que les vaya bien, que les vaya bien. Tú que más viciosa, ya no lloraré. Aunque yo te extrañe, quédate con él. Resignarme a que no estés, aunque esté muy triste, ya no lloraré. Tú eres feliz y estás con él, era mi amigo, pues ya no lo es. Que les vaya bien, que les vaya bien. No te extrañaré, quédate con él. Que te vaya bien, que les vaya bien, que les vaya bien. Tú que más viciosa, ya no lloraré. Aunque yo te extrañe, quédate